Trish Bodie.
Here.
Gloria Gonzalez DeLucia. Alexis Grimes.
Here.
Aaron Johnson.
Here.
Christine Maurer.
Here.
Anna Smith.
Here.
Jim McKay's here too.
Jim McKay. My apologies.
Here.
Okay. With a quorum of our board members present, we will now call our special meeting on March 11th to order and move to the next item on our agenda, communication and announcement. Superintendent Gehring, do you have any remarks?
Nothing at this time, Madam President. Thank you.
All right. Board members, are there any remarks? It's a special meeting. Y'all can save them to the 25th, too. All right. Yeah.
Did you have?
Okay. We'll now move on to citizen comments. Does it work? Okay. We're moving on to the citizen comments portion of the evening. Note this format is not about a conversation, not a back and forth discussion. We'll ask that comments respect that limitation. Also, this evening is a special meeting, so all items during citizen comments should pertain to the items on our agenda. Our board operating procedures enumerates further requests, but I will sum up by saying we encourage polite and professional conduct. You have up to 3 minutes to address the Board of Trustees, and we'll hear a chime when your 3 minutes are up. And I'm going to pull up the first name for the evening is Gerald Prater to talk on our agenda item about deeper learning. Gerald, if that's uncomfortable for you to hold, they can get you a temporary mask if you need.
I can't wear a mask. I can't. Good evening, Board, Dr. Gehring. I'm here to speak tonight about your agenda items that I've gone through all of them. And actually, for your awareness, I sent you all a detailed write-up of what I'm going to talk about through email. And I've also, for people that are watching, I posted it publicly on Facebook as well. The title of my presentation tonight is called Deeper Learning as a Weapon. I've gone through, again, your presentation. I know what you're going to go through on the agenda tonight, and I want to start by zooming in on slide number 3 on your presentation. As I looked at that slide, the first little icon on that slide caught my attention. It's called core beliefs. This is a continuation of what I talked to you about last meeting. Is the real elephant in the room is that we've got a conflict between the core beliefs that we see you trying to push and the beliefs that values that we have. And until we really come to that, we're really not really addressing the core issue. The next icon on that slide number 3 is a slide called, icon called Mission and Vision, where it seems like you're developing a mission of where you want to take the district, including the students, of course. And my problem with when I looked at that, my problem is that as a former corporate executive, when you're developing mission and vision, you always take into account the shareholders, the owners of the company. And it appears to me that when you look at our government and the way we're structured, the shareholders and owners, that would be us. But it seems like you're really not taking seriously what we believe or what we want. And you're trying to pretty much take our kids from us and take them in a direction that we may not agree with. We see that you're going to go through and do an exercise on bridge building, and then after that, you're going to get to the real core question, the real core issue is what is deeper learning? You're going to discuss it. We're going to quickly talk about 3 things in that outline when you're defining the topic of deeper learning. Number 1, developing effective communication skills, and also thinking skills. As I looked at that, I thought that what I see and what many of the parents see you doing is trying to not show the kids how to communicate effectively or how to think critically, but what to think and what to communicate. And this is really the core, again, issue. At the very end of my presentation is my time, and I'm very respectful of your time, is we are in a battle that we're not prepared to give up on. The battle, what you're doing is, by law, you're attacking what belongs to us as if it belongs to you. And at the end of the day, our children are our posterity. You're trying to divert that in a direction that takes away my identity. And as a veteran in the military, that's not something that I'm prepared to do. Thank you guys very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gerald.
And don't forget that email I sent you.
Thank you. All right, Maria Fairbanks to speak about our mission agenda item. You can begin whenever you're ready. There's a button in front of you with a little face, a little microphone, button on the right.
Good night, everyone. I'm Maria, mother of 3 kids in the Leander School District. My little youngest son today received the C-Square Award, something like that, for cooperating with the class, so I'm very proud. Today, I'm worried, and that's why I'm here participating in this meeting. I kind of get to meet some of the people that are here through your biography online, and I kind of feel identified with some of you that are Latino background and didn't grow with a very good education, but their parents work very, very hard to get us be able to get better educated. I want that for my kids, get a better education. I have moved multiple times around this country. I was hoping to find the best education for my kids, and not in terms of numbers, in terms of respect. If you're talking about deep learning, I'm concerned that the deep learning curriculum that you are giving to our kids, it's going too far. Deep learning, I don't know if it's giving more opportunities to our kids or taking opportunities from our kids. In the class, the English language art class, you have a full list of books that are wonderful, that I hope my kids get the opportunity to read and participate with other students in the school doing the homework. Not because I request my kids to read one book that is in that list, to be left behind and do the homework alone. That is what happened with my kid back in September when he chose to read Charles Dickens. The book he chose to read had to do the assignment by himself and not be able, even if it's listed in the school district, not be able to do it with other kids. That is not very good news for me. I come from a very diverse world. I really enjoy participating with different people from different backgrounds. I don't think any kid should be assigned to read a book that no one in the class chose to read, but because that kid turned in his homework, his request late, he was assigned to read the book that no other kid wanted to read. There is a reason why no kid wanted to read the book where the girl went to the doctor and came back as a boy. There is a reason, and you have to listen to that. You can't just not listen. If it's a deep learning, those type of details are telling you what education our kids want. They don't want those books.
Maria,
So
would you
please
give us your
listen.
last sentence? Thank you. Oh, I was just saying, would you give us your last sentence, what you wanted us to hear?
Yes, We came here for better opportunities. We know how important is education. Deep learning might as well include a better curriculum with the books that our kids want to read,
Thank you.
all of us.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move on to our agenda item this evening, discussion items. We have just 2 board members. This is our special meeting. We're going to be discussing deeper learning. We'll be starting off. And if our fabulous presenters would introduce themselves to the audience or people who are watching on our line.
Right. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Gearing. We are excited to be here to really engage in a shared experience around deeper learning and discuss the impact on student and staff experience. I am Krista Gudling, the Assistant Superintendent of Pathways and Innovation, and I have my colleague, Carrie Spanigal, here with me. I'll let her introduce herself.
Carrie Spanigal, and I'm the Director of Instruction and Digital Learning.
So tonight, we really are going to, this is going to be a, when we do things like deeper learning, we really get involved. And so you're not going to listen to us speak as much as you are going to have some activities. And so before we get started, we really want to talk through and just remind ourselves of where we are. So deeper learning is a part of a series of shared learning that the board is engaging in as it helps us guide our roadmap to our 5-year strategic plan. Y'all had a really great meeting with Vision on Tuesday, and we're excited to continue that work with Mission tonight. And we're hoping that today's session just allows a little bit more learning that kind of guides us to that work. And so what we're going to do is we're going to engage in an activity first, then we're going to talk together and define deeper learning, and then we're going to look at implications and impact to the system. And so a couple of just operational items as we get going. In January, we went through a code of cooperations, and so we're going to continue with that here. On your desk, you have your Brave Space agreements or commitments that we continue to follow. So those are there, and we're going to use those this evening as well. In addition, you should have a green folder on your desk. In there should be a URL to the parking lot. So just a reminder about the parking lot is that this is a place for you to communicate with us as the facilitators through this work. It gives you an opportunity to let us know what's going well right now, what maybe what's not going so well, what questions you might have, and what ideas you might have for improvements or further learning. And so I'm going to ask you to go to that URL if you don't mind and put in a little test response there to make sure everyone has access. We have our computers here because it will allow us to see your responses so that we know how to address those as we're going through tonight's activity. So I'm going to pause there to let you do a test run.
So it's the hyperlink that is there on the white piece of paper.
Yes.
I'm getting this site can't be reached, so I might need tech help. Maybe I'm missing something.
Okay, I see a few of us are able to get in.
So just a point of clarity, we're going to log into this website. We're going to respond via keyboard, and it's going to show up on your computer.
It shows up here, yes, sir.
Okay. Does it show up to the community?
It does not right now. This is for us to just do some work of what's going well, what maybe we need to pause on. It's a place for us to collect, and so we'll review this towards the end. of what are some questions we have on here. So as you add some questions, we'll review this. And so we will review this throughout our session, but it also allows a place for us, one of our, excuse me, code of cooperations is to take breaks as needed. In the past, this was also a place sometimes where some of you might say, hey, I think we're gonna need a little break. And so it gave us the ability to pause and stop that with not necessarily interrupting.
So I very much appreciate you and the staff. I very much do. I'm going to be perfectly candid with you. This conversation, as we've seen from some of the parents that have shown up tonight and the 200-plus communications that I've received this week, is critically important. And to do this type of exercise where we, in front of the public, say, well, we're going to type it to you, but they're not going to be able to see it, is, I'm looking at it from an optics perspective. We do these things over here, and we stand up and we write, so everybody can see. I will participate in this, certainly, but to me, this is not the way that we build trust with our community. This needs to be open.
Well, Jim, let me make sure. I think that's a good question. What I understood the facilitators are, we're going to have an open conversation, but the way to facilitate all the questions, rather than us raising our hands with the space, whatever we're right, they're going to say back to us, other than we want to take a break, and then they're going to say, okay, we're hearing you want to take a break. But if the conversations are going deep, let me tell board members, the conversation shouldn't be deep here. Conversation should be deep here. Deliberation happens here. So let there not be any misconception about what this forum is about. This forum's like, hey, can we ask about this? And then they'll say, hey, I hear you want to ask about this.
I am, again, I am willing to participate, but my initial, because this has just been presented to me, that this, to me, is counter to fostering open and honest communications with our community.
If I might add, I think what's really important tonight, we're going to all work on this together. And if our concern is pandering to each or any group, we're not going to make progress. And I do think right now we've done parking lots many of times before. It's never been an issue. So let's work on it, let's move forward, and let's not do a campaign speech before every single comment.
I appreciate your comments, but that has nothing to do with pandering. That has everything to do with being open and honest in front of our public. That includes the left, that includes the right, and that includes everybody in the center.
Yeah, I know. And we need to move forward right now with everyone.
So last time we used this, I mean, if y'all want me to announce to y'all, I had to use the restroom last time. That's what this was used for. Like, we've used it 3 different times. And I know there was one time where I was disagreeing with an individual, and then she and I connected because I asked for a break. She and I connected afterwards, you know, that incident. We were able to talk it out. So for me, it gave me an opportunity to listen to my board member who did not have the same view as I didn't have the same view as her, but because they gave me that safe place, she and I were able to connect, and I was able to find common ground. So I understand what you're saying, Jim, but you can always do public information requests. I mean, those are happening very frequently now.
Well, let's not let this be a tool that's a stumbling block. So if I'm trusting you as the moderators too, if you see an issue, we will stop using the tool and move straight into hearing the conversation. This was just supposed to be helpful as another form.
Absolutely.
of
It's just the way,
communication.
especially if we're deep in conversation and maybe someone hasn't spoken, they can put it in here. We'll make sure to bring that up and say, we have a board member who wants to address a comment. It may even be as facilitators where we say, oh, Ms. Bodie, that is a really great question. It's going to take a little bit more to get you some answers to that. Can you please put that in the parking lot so we have a record of your question as well, so we can come back and address that as well. And so it's just a tool that we use to be able to do that, but we'll also talk about what we, how we can better address that. So
Yeah, maybe we
yes.
can use a different tool next time. We'll
Absolutely.
figure this out as we go along, continuous improvement.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So what we're going to do, and so what we're going to do is we're going to get straight into an activity. And so we're going to get into our Build a Bridge activity. And what we're going to ask you all to do is we're going to ask you to get into the same groups that you were in on Tuesday as you work through your vision. And we're going to ask you to come to these 2 side tables, and Carrie's going to walk us through the activity.
So we're going to just jump right in. All of our activities tonight will be on blue paper. So if you come to our table and you're working together, it's going to be on blue paper. It's going to help you. This is where you go first. What am I supposed to do? You go to your blue paper. So for this activity, we are going to ask you to be very collaborative with each other. I have on the activity requirements that you will need to meet together as you are building, obviously building a bridge together, as well as some reflection questions to help you. So as you are completing the task, you may get to a place where you think, I think we're done. Our group has rocked it. I'm going to come and say, hey, check out the reflection questions at the bottom to make sure you really are 100% confident in where you are with your activity. So the other thing you have available, because I know, there may be some terminology on here that may not be something you use on a regular basis. Maybe you do. But you have a phone a friend folder. You don't have to use it. But if you get stuck as a team and you're not quite sure where to go next, there are some helpful resources in the red folder. So this is your phone a friend folder. You have a tub full of resources that you can use that is available, and I think you'll have fun digging in there to find lots of great stuff. So a real quick recap. When you come to your table for an activity, blue card is where you start it with your team. You need some help, red folder is where you go next. And then what we will do is I'll give you a little bit of time to get into it, and then we'll kind of judge where you are in your activity. We'll make sure you have a 5-minute reminder when we're getting towards the end of the activity together. Any questions? All right, well, I'll have you guys come down this way, and I'm going to move my stuff and clean the table really quickly, and then we will be ready. Do y'all want to, I'm going to move this here in the corner. Yeah, just like that. Okay. All right, my friends. There you are.
Alexis is going to be the director for us.
Okay. Wait, blue, right? You got the blue? Yep. Okay.
This is just to read along.
Okay.
As a team, we're going to build a bridge with available resources. The bridge must have 3 blocks high, a barge, a wooden block must travel under the bridge. The bridge must span 38 centimeters. Who knows where I'm clearly there's going to be there's a ruler. Oh, that's not a hard look. Also represented by a sheet of blue paper, I guess. Oh, that's our river. A toy car must roll across the bridge without falling off to the side. The bridge must hold the weight.
So I guess my question is,
Must have sent it to DI, man. Bringing back my coaching days.
right?
Bridge must stand.
Represented by the sheet.
So the bridge must span.
And what else?
A
So,
wooden block must travel underneath.
There's a travel.
what do you mean travel? Or
And then
that way we have more space to
span
build?
38 centimeters. Okay, so these are our resources for the bridge.
Doesn't say,
I don't think so.
no? Okay.
Let's go to for the block
That's
underneath.
31,
Right? Yeah.
so that's
So
about
the
38
toy car must
centimeters.
roll under, across the
So
bridge.
it has to
without falling down.
span
So
that distance or more.
The bridge.
So
Yeah.
if we put this
Okay,
here,
there you go.
here, right?
Yeah, 3
It has
blocks
to
high,
span
so it's
that
gotta be,
distance.
Wait, we've got a ton of stuff
And it
here.
needs to be at least this far off the table.
and this
that
is the
right?
river, right?
Yes. And that
Where's that go?
goes-
Like this? Okay.
Actually, if we turn
The
it
other
this
way?
way, is
Yeah.
it 38 centimeters
Oh,
or
yeah.
so?
There you go.
So there's our 38.
There we
Yeah.
go. Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. So then.
Good observation.
Really, that needs to do that, huh?
Can we make a bridge from here to here?
I mean, we couldn't, look, we have all this stuff, and we have all this, like,
Or there.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, aesthetics matter, right?
Okay, all right,
We need some
okay.
hot glue gun in here.
Oh, we got Petty.
Ooh, okay. Okay, so we got this.
And then hold the weight of a car.
So
the bridge holds
So maybe
Maybe that's better.
okay.
off or bumping the side.
So what if we,
Pull back.
okay, here's our car. How wide is this?
Play?
Yeah.
I'm going to play.
What if we use these to stable it at the bottom?
We need a plan.
I'm gonna be very complicated about this, so y'all can kind of do this. I'm gonna do it like,
So it only needs to be this wide.
right,
But
right.
it can't fall off.
Right.
The
You think that'll work?
Well,
Right,
we
but we
could
have
use
tape.
this, like curve,
So, yes, on the paper, yes,
Right.
like bumpers.
so yeah,
Okay,
and we
perfect.
could stick a few together.
All right, perfect. And there's,
We have scissors, yeah, that would help. We just
so we could double these
split
too.
one,
Yeah, it's gonna.
We could take,
let that,
we need something,
But that, yeah, something sturdy to like support it. Yeah. Yes.
yes?
Well, I think you need to.
We'll take it off, yeah.
I think we
With tape just underneath it, keep it sturdy enough?
Or like, what
Don't worry
about
about the clay being saggy.
this? There we go.
The
Well, I
barge
don't-
has to go in
I
there.
don't, can that go in the water?
It's a pillar.
I guess
It doesn't say you can't have things.
a barge must travel under the bridge.
These two, look.
Does that mean,
I think so.
I
about
guess we
this?
have to at least allow space for that.
So I wonder,
Maybe it's,
yeah.
so maybe we get this at a minimum, we can have one support in the middle.
Oh, yes.
Cantilever and. You want me to take,
Sure.
I could like,
go the other way?
Need one more? I think that's almost long.
okay, so do we want, we're gonna,
I don't know if we can use the block though in and of itself because it says it must travel, right?
Well, I was
makes
just
me
using it
think-
as a spacer.
Okay.
Saying that
So we
if
put
this
it-
can pass underneath, that
Right.
where is where we can stick it or.
okay.
Take that one.
I should tell you right now, my team did not advance in DI. So.
Okay, so, are we gonna use this, or are we gonna use these?
I like those better.
These, because these are
Yeah.
kind of sturdy? Okay.
Would it be enough just to tape those together?
I think so. Yeah, that's what I think.
Tape these to the cards?
Yeah.
I think that's what we'll
Look
do.
at that.
Look, because it's pretty, these are a lot sturdier than the paper. Let me see. So what we need.
Grabbing the straw.
Okay.
I'll have you can tape both
We do
of these
have,
in a second.
And remember, you have your phone a friend folder if you need that. Do we have to, because
Can we recruit?
you might be able to push it several times. Okay, but what you can't do is like hold on to it and guide it.
It's not bad.
Oh, I think that's
It
great.
does tend to bow. Do
That's
we
where we
need to,
But it just needs to fall off, right? It must roll across the bridge. Oh, are bumping into the sides.
sides of what?
That's kind of interesting. The sides of the bridge?
The sides of the bridge, I guess.
Okay, so we're taping all of these together, right?
Falling off or,
I think we should try that. I think we should. Now, what tape would be best? This one better, you
Yeah.
think, than the Scotch tape?
So hold on, I want to see.
Now, we do have,
I'm not sure, do we want to test it?
so wait, do you need something under that?
Try the tape?
Oh, another straw?
If we,
How do you test?
well, yeah, you could put two together with one tape and put two together with another tape. Can
Oh.
I make one other proposal?
Yeah.
What's that?
Um,
I don't know how I want that, but whatever.
Are you intentionally
No.
doubling or tripling?
There was 4 of them, yeah, I was just counting it out. We want more, there's
Trying
more.
to-
Yeah,
What if we just start with
One?
one layer and
That's
see
fine.
if we need more?
that works.
I don't know how much we need, but I was gonna suggest we
Still
just
flimsy.
overlap them.
looks like I'll go through your reflection questions for just a moment and see if you feel like this design will meet those reflection questions.
You want it like on the other? Oh, I see. No, I think you're right.
Actually, rather than block it, if we do this, tape on the, call this the bottom,
Yeah,
tape on the bottom, turn it this way, the car's really just gonna go.
right.
You do the pull back and then hold the wheel and it'll go on
There,
there.
perfect. Anything extra? Perfect.
We're going to give you a 5-minute warning. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The key is for
All right, so there's
Yeah.
one.
Yes.
connect these two now?
The other key is don't pull it back.
Yeah, don't
nearly
pull
as
it
far.
back.
Just
Well,
let it
you
go.
could, can you stabilize it here in the middle?
See, yeah, like this is.
No, we can, it didn't say we had to stop it.
Try it, can I put it?
It says, what does it say about falling off?
Well,
That little guy,
wait.
maybe, with his buckle down there. My goodness.
What about these?
Oh, like a stopper?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, just make a stop of
That's
it.
a
So now we
excellent
need,
idea.
actually, yes.
Yes, there you
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, they've got the tape.
Exactly. Enough, actually, enough of that.
This is some
We
hard
can
play.
actually use that to stick the
Yes.
supports in underneath too.
Yes. Where do you want this out of? This one?
Sure, more. More. Especially underneath.
Will you
I'll
make
get the
some,
underneath.
we're gonna need it for the end.
And then,
Uh-oh, hold on.
Making
okay, more top and more bottom.
Give me some at the top.
the top?
Yeah.
How tall are these? It's pretty good.
Will they put two in here?
Two at a time.
I don't know if this, okay, there it goes.
What, did you stick them together or
I'm looking at yours. I want to see if you do. What do you think?
mess it around?
Neutral right now. It's in neutral, like that, and this way, you just gotta put it in.
Well, maybe, let's see, hold on. Well, I think with the,
I didn't know
the
that had
supports
a
might actually
spring
work.
on it, so you don't even need that tape.
There we go.
I mean, it can be.
Yes, 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 yes.
How many of the people in the audience have already done this exercise?
They have not, they did a different one. They had a much longer project to do.
Oh, look at you, already done.
The thing is, when you pull back, it kind of, it goes out of control.
Should we tape those on the
Like an
card?
instant challenge for DI.
Right. I like
There you go.
the height on one side, actually.
Yeah.
You know?
We're putting it back?
I don't know if y'all want, but we could put side panels all the way around, so what do y'all want to do? Side panels?
Matters not to me.
Yes, okay, yeah, this is like a little teepee thing underneath, yes.
That's right.
In Austin, too.
Yeah, this is an option.
It's coming together.
It is?
There you go. Here, wait, hold on, Trish, before you, let's move this down a little bit.
Billboards, we need like advertisements.
Just about used everything in the box. huh?
There we go.
We haven't used the paper clips on the box, Eric?
Need bus
Little plane flying overhead?
Crossing guards, sign right here.
Build a little tree on the side?
That's right.
Okay, Kara.
Is that, how stable are we?
Okay, Jim, I have a,
This is, yeah, kind of is a little bit.
so I got my first dose. Moderna. And
Okay, where do you want this?
All right,
leftover dose
Ooh, there you go, there's the paper clips.
at a facility. I have no.
Oh, I like the paper clip on the end.
There you go.
That'll work. Is there one on that side?
I've given you a white card.
Got my white cards.
Okay, so with that white card, you can
Okay.
use that to register for
Will the
yourself.
card go?
What they need is the
Okay.
date of that first.
That part, yeah, it's
Coming
this
off.
one part right
Where was
here.
it
is-
at?
I think we should try the other side.
Actually, a retirement community.
Here?
Takes it down.
where they're
Got it?
going here.
Yeah, so they're pretty much not required, but they will give you this.
Yeah, this tape is a little better. Honestly, this purple tape's not really working.
Doesn't stick to the plastic.
No, not at all.
Call Williamson County.
All right,
That's
well,
not going well now.
ready for a test spin?
Williamson County Health District.
Okay.
Is it wind
Tell
up?
them what
I know, I was trying to see.
It was going
That's what I
Here,
thought.
you wanna do it?
Yeah.
in the grooves in the trap.
What if we, yeah,
Yeah, make it nice and
we
smooth.
need to touch?
All right, really quick, go through your reflection questions and make sure you feel like you're good there.
Is it tall enough for our barge to sail underneath?
Can we use these?
Okay, but,
All right.
I need some more yellow tape.
Is the height of the bridge tall enough to allow for our barge?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Does it go through this way? Does it go through?
yeah,
Can't
if
go
it
through
goes through that way, we got an issue. But
But
if we
it
got,
goes through this way just fine.
and as long as I can help him sail and he doesn't move my water.
Is our bridge stable enough to roll our car across the bridge 4 times?
What? That's ridiculous. You didn't say this.
Well, I think
try
we're
it.
pretty close. Where'd the car go?
Yeah, right here.
Ah, I think we're pretty stable.
Oh,
It is
well, we
skewed. Some
used to
kid probably went, look at this.
what happened?
Let's undo the purple tape. It doesn't.
The purple
stick
tape's
to
not
the-
very good.
I think that's the way, gotta just hold
Yeah.
it back, do that thing, and then.
It might work on the cards, but it's not holding on nothing. Plastic.
Got some oomph, Jim.
Now we transition.
And maybe the pits
Stuck to my thumb.
So put it this way and have it head towards that.
Is it sticking on the?
No. Woo, there you go.
No, right there.
Okay, yep.
Yay.
That's two.
So do we have to actually do it 4 times or just answer the question?
Three. We even got some speed on it.
I'm just saying.
I haven't even seen theirs, but
It's a little more, I mean, we don't have,
All right.
the sides are different, but that doesn't
Not
matter.
beautiful, but it works.
Is our bridge
Our
strong
approach
enough
on
to
this side
hold
is a
the
different
weight
than
of the
approach
car
than
without
on this side.
bugging?
Absolutely. See, I like that. Creative architecture.
We are creating a bridge that
we won.
celebrates differences.
There you go, I like that.
I mean, good job, guys.
Should we just do a mic drop and go sit down?
Yeah, like, we're done here. Y'all still working?
Yeah? I don't, well, I guess we leave it up as a,
All right, your time is up, but I think it would be nice to see the work of your peers.
Yep.
So if one group wants to host a group and show them their bridge, and then let's do a tour of our other bridge.
It's gonna be second.
No, come learn from the best
Oh,
here.
jeez,
Look at this.
Wow.
Fancy.
So we're just gonna go home now tonight. We got it.
We got it. We're done.
well, let's see it. Demonstrate.
Yeah.
No, Aaron is the person.
Oh, so only
Aaron's the
one
driver.
person can drive the car?
no, we've just only had one driver.
Okay.
Y'all don't want me
There's no
driving.
The
rule.
designated driver.
Yes, you don't want me driving, guys.
Oh, but I thought
I
it
think you
had
died.
to stop.
I think you died.
I'm sorry. Is the word stop in blue form?
It
That's what he
says,
said.
fall off.
Doesn't fall off the bridge.
Well, technically, this is the bridge. These are the roads.
That's the abutment of the bridge. You fell right off the
No, that's where the
bridge.
road
That's where
starts.
the road starts. This is the road.
So what I might say, so you noticed, right, that it came off the bridge on this side. What might you suggest to this team with kind of what you were thinking about the terms not fall off the bridge? So what was your understanding of that, and then what's a suggestion you might give this team?
Fell all the way off the flat earth.
Fly off the
We
flat
put a
earth.
stopper, because ours
put a
flew
stopper.
off. and-
Yeah.
Which
I like
you
your,
still
I
die
like
when
your.
Now
you
we
hit the
slam
stopper.
into a wall?
Your problem now is you live on a bridge.
And our airbags went off.
All right, let's go tour our friend's bridge over
I like your
here.
supports here.
I know.
this, though.
I
This is
like the
cool.
use of Play-Doh. I'm gonna grab a piece of it. I can't not.
Jim, be our driver.
So you run into a wall here.
But
ours is also two-way.
It's very controlled.
Yeah. But our abutments are creative, so there's two different, like, design. Architectural, what did you say?
Creativity.
Creative architecture, yeah.
almost.
And our boat is flat.
Ours goes almost all the way.
Our boat could be
Oh,
towed.
okay.
Yes.
Very good.
All right, awesome, thank you very much. So we are going to clean up just a bit of the extra supplies. So if you don't mind, you can leave your bridge for a moment, but if you don't mind just helping with the cleanup, and then we're gonna have you head back to your spots and we'll debrief from there.
Sorry.
Thanks.
sorry.
No, you're good.
Take that.
All right, so I hope that that activity kind of was engaging and had you thinking. One of the things that I noticed as I was watching you all work together and that I really appreciate is looking at our Brave Space commitment of really taking space and make space. So I heard people invite other people into the conversation, which was really good. And really being willing to try it on, right? We didn't know what was going to happen, how that was going to work, but you all really came together to work as a group, and so I thought that that was really good. And so I appreciate you kind of demonstrating what some of those commitments look like. So what we're going to do is we're going to debrief this activity. And so you should have some sticky notes, I believe, on your table. And what I'm going to ask you to do, and what I want you to know is that this activity is actually part of our second grade curriculum. And so it's one of the activities that happens in our science curriculum there for our unit of study on building the bridges.
That's
So
deeper learning. Okay, we're done.
there you go. And there you go.
We played, are you smarter than a second grader?
So what we want you to think about is we're going to take this first question, and what I'd like for you to do is on individual sticky, so every idea or every skill that you choose to write down will be on a separate activity. And what I want you to do is just take a minute to individually reflect. And on this first round, we're just going to think about what skills did you use in this activity. Please put one skill on a sticky note, right? So each sticky note gets a skill. So what skills did you use in this activity? All right, some of you are still writing, and that's okay. Others are at a point where I think they might be ready for the next question. And so the next question, again, we're going to ask you to put one item per sticky note. What knowledge did you need to perform this activity? So as you were working with your group, what knowledge did you need in order to be able to do this? And just so you know, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's based on your experience and what you thought. So please feel comfortable writing down the knowledge that you needed to perform.
So I feel like the knowledge is the same as my like skill that I put down. Can you give me an example of what you're looking for?
Absolutely. So a skill might have been I needed to measure, or I needed to know which piece to measure. The knowledge might have been some of the vocabulary terms that were used there, or types of bridges. And then the final thing, as you are writing down, kind of wrapping up the different knowledge you may have needed, the last thing we're going to ask you to write on the different sticky notes is what piqued your interest in the activity? So what about the activity made you interested or engaged in it? And write that, each one on a sticky.
Can you repeat that?
Yes, ma'am. What piqued your interest within the activity? So what made you interested in it and engaged in it? All right. Does everybody have at least a few items for each one of those questions? Very good. Okay. So what we are going to do is we're going to now categorize the items that you wrote down, and this is how we're going to categorize them. And you can just do them. We're not going to get up and go put them on a sticky note, but you can do them there at your table, and then we're going to talk through them and debrief them together as a group. So the first category we want to look at is the cool category. And the cool category is about our cognitive rigor piece. So what sticky notes do you have that would fall under cognitive rigor or academics? Once you have categorized those, the next category is our warm category, and that is passion and interest. So the warm category, sticky notes that would go here, would be items that piqued your interest or kept you engaged in the activity, things that might ignite your passion or something that really, where you could connect with the activity. And then the final category is our flow. And so the flow category are the qualities that give the learning life and create forward momentum. What that means is, what are the skills that are not necessarily in the academic category, but were essential to the process and can transfer across different situations? So what were some of those skills that you may have written down? Those would go in the flow category. So we're just going to have a little group discussion and talk a little bit about what went into these categories. So in the cool category of cognitive rigor, would someone like to share kind of what they put there and why, their thought process around it?
Yeah, I have reading down as one of mine, and I actually have it twice because I think it was in the knowledge piece and the, whatever the first one was, sorry. But those are sort of that academic piece that I felt like you had to be able to read to understand the directions, to understand what was expected, that kind of thing.
I had fine motor skills because we were having to, use our fingers and push tape off and clay and whatnot.
I had engineering.
Copycat, I had engineering 101.
I had spatial relationship reasoning.
I had vocabulary, and I wrote them down, but just different words.
I had materials knowledge, how they behave.
I also had asking questions.
Mine was also comprehension.
Situational assessment.
Critical thinking.
Great. So I'm going to pause right there with some of those and talk to me a little bit like around the critical thinking or the fine motor skills. Talk to me a little bit about why you put it in cognitive rigor versus the flow, which are also some of those skills that can transfer. Just what was your thought process through that?
I couldn't decide. So they're like flipping back and forth because they both go in both categories, I feel like.
Yeah, critical thinking for me is not necessarily motivating and momentum building. It's because it's hard.
I said for cool, the cognitive rigor, that's how do we, knowing the essential skills, and then the flow is how do you assemble those essential skills to achieve your objective.
Great. I like your thought process.
I wrote envisioning. I think that's cognitive, but it also potentially has flow implications. But it's kind of contextual, but it's knowledge based. It's imagining, right?
So really love how you're connecting some of these together with the academics, right? That it's not standing alone, but we're seeing some of these skills that help move that academics forward. Let's talk a little bit. I'm really interested to know a bit about what you put in the warm area. So what maybe piqued your interest in this activity? Had you engaged in it? What did you maybe like about it that would say, as a participant, this is what I wanted to do? And if this was not something that, like I say, that's my jam. If this wasn't your jam, this is, I was participating as a good collaborative member, but maybe this didn't pique my interest. Talk to us a little bit about something that might.
So in that one for me, I have play because I think it was, we got a good laugh out of a couple things, and I mean it was playful. I mean that makes you want to learn more and keep doing it and keep at the activity. So that play piece is really important.
For me, it was we all had very similar interests when we were building it, so it was kind of awesome. One of us would start with an idea, and then the other one would finish the other idea, and then it just kind of kept going and going. So it was kind of for me, it's like a combination of teamwork and then similar ideas.
I had creativity because, you're thinking outside, like what's going to really make this work, so.
I had reaching a goal, so there was somewhere to head towards, but then kind of intuitive to that, it was kind of open-ended, so you didn't have to get a particular outcome. You could almost choose the creativity in it, I think.
And to go with Anna's teamwork, I had kind of the other side of that coin as well, which is there was a little bit of a competitive feel, right? So I think, the pro team and the somebody to compare or contrast against is an important component.
I put critical reasoning for here. It made me think of like when you're playing a game, you have this critical reasoning, like what do you want to do? And that game element of trying to strategize and plan. So that is passion and interest for me.
I had comparative analysis regarding other points of view versus my own.
Those are all really good, and I like that. This is probably my favorite question here about in my favorite category, because it allows us to get to know you all a little bit better, but then it also allows us to see the different things that interested you in the same activity, right? And so we all participated in the same one, but maybe we all came to it, to the engage piece, through a different lens, because those are the different areas that make us unique as individuals that we really liked. And so from the competitiveness to the listening to different views to the play, right? And then the creativity. So it's really great to see that lens from you all of what engages you in that, and then that you're able to participate in that with this particular activity. So when we look at this, the idea about this activity is when we create student learning experiences, we really create them that are standards-based and around the academics, but we really also want to include the other pieces, those skills that can transfer in the passion and interest of the students as well, and to create these overarching learning experiences. And so we're going to use that to dig in a little bit into our deeper learning definition.
So before we really start with deeper learning, we have to talk about what is learning. And if you take a dictionary, choose your favorite, and you look up what is learning, you're going to come to a pretty common definition that learning is the knowledge or skill acquired by instruction or study. So it's acquisition of knowledge. So if learning is the acquisition of knowledge, then what is deeper learning? And so we have worked on a definition to help us that is based on quite a bit of different pieces of research. And we've landed on deeper learning allows students to engage in academic content while moving from surface to transfer knowledge and skills. Deeper learning experiences assist students in developing multiple competencies, including effective communication, critical thinking and problem solving, collaboration, the academic mindset, self-directed learning, and content mastery. So I want to give you just about 3 minutes very quickly, but give you an opportunity to read through the definition and think about what do you notice about the definition, and what does this bring, like what do you wonder about the definition? So what do you notice and what do you wonder? I'm going to give about 3 minutes and then we'll discuss.
This is a sticky note thing.
You may use a sticky note if you would like, but you don't have to.
Do you want us to start with notice, or you still want us to read and you're going to ping us when you're ready?
I think we are ready to start with notice.
Okay. I noticed when I was looking at this, I see a lot of what I would consider soft skills in the workforce.
That's funny, that's exactly what I had. The soft skills were included. It really makes me happy.
I also noticed self-directed learning. To me, this goes back to some of the things we've been talking about in core beliefs, right? And some of the statements we've been making about our student kind of them being able to have the tools they need to own their own learning and to be able to have a intentional focus on their relevant learning. Sorry, I was looking at all the words and it all scrambled in my head.
Sorry, I was going to comment, but I'm waiting for the next round, I think.
And we can move to I wonders.
So I wonder if what I've traditionally thought of as deeper learning truly is, but then I wonder where my historical or my past vision of deeper learning really fits. So for me, at least up to this point, the thinking around deeper learning was application, right? Learning is knowing. Deeper learning to me means application and using what you've learned cognitively in a way that cements it for future use and reference, right? But maybe that's really applied learning, and maybe deeper learning is something else. And so maybe there's a linkage that I want to think through a little bit further there.
So I kind of wrote down the same, kind of along those lines, Aaron, was, does deeper learning mean more project-based type things rather than what we would conceive as traditional type learning, right? It's that, teacher in front of the classroom teaching the students. Is deeper learning more like maybe project-based, where you're working with a group like we just did to build the bridge, or you've got a longer project in play where all of that learning comes in and you're using lots of those different skills and lots of different subjects. It's not so compartmentalized, I guess is what I was kind of thinking.
Mine was a combination of that, okay, I learned this skill, but how does it apply to the real world? And how do I take this knowledge that I did in a team or not in a team, and then apply it to doing something outside of the classroom, right?
From deeperlearningforall.org, it says that content mastery and students apply new knowledge to real-world situations, which would speak to application, which I've always thought deeper learning is taking what you have learned and how do you apply it effectively.
Yeah, I had one other I wonder, which was I wonder if doing something, working on a project with others necessarily always produces deeper learning. I think often it does not. And so I think I want to be careful of the assumption that doing things in groups necessarily equals deeper learning, right? It has a lot to do with how those groups function and who's paired together and how they work together and all of that.
I wonder about the effective communication, because for some of our students, that communication looks very differently. And so when I see that, we assume, communicate without any speech impediments, but what does that look like for a child that does have a speech impediment or does speak differently than their peers? So I see that kind of sticking out for me.
Or use different devices to communicate. Yeah.
And since you raised that question, now I wonder, based on that, I'm hopeful here that communication isn't only about not about verbal, but nonverbal as well, right? How do we posture? How do we interact with each other? Like, I see it being more robust.
So I noticed that these are deeper learning experiences and not one experience. So it's iterative, and these skills are developed in multiple experiences over time. And also that the experiences assist students in developing, so they don't develop in students, they assist students in developing these things in themselves because of the way that, I was involved in that activity forces me to develop those things inside myself as opposed to the teacher teaching me that, right?
So when my husband and I are talking about our son, I'm like, look, if we tell him what to do, he's not going to remember this. We have to get him to come to the answer himself. And that's what I'm thinking of when I'm reading this. So that's what I noticed is this makes me think of kind of like, if I could, don't do it as much as I would love to, but if I could get them to just come to the conclusion, right? And they think it themselves, that's a stronger message for them.
So I'm also going to move us back a few slides. And so we're going to look back at that warm, cool flow. We started with this activity, and you noticed I didn't give you a lot of instructions. I gave you some procedural instructions to get started, and I said basically go, right? And you identified knowledge, skills, interests within the activity. So my question for you now is, looking back at this slide, in combination with our deeper learning definition, what connections do you see between the activity that we did to start with the cool, warm flow and the deeper learning definition?
I like that it's rooted in academic content, academic mindset, and content mastery to start.
So those definitions there all speak to how to as opposed to what to. And as we used in this example here, we weren't told how to, or we weren't told what to do with the blocks. We were told how the final product should look. So to me, deeper learning is more about getting back to how do we learn versus what do we learn.
So I'm thinking of, and I'll need a noodle on this a little more, and maybe you can help me though. When I'm looking at this definition, I'm seeing the cool and the warm together. And so I'm seeing, and I'm thinking, when you put those together, if you put them in the right combinations, if the student's getting inspired, then you get that next part, right?
Yeah, it sort of felt, sorry.
It's okay.
It sort of felt like they melded together instead of it being compartmentalized.
So I like that our outcomes and our success looked very differently, but I want us to challenge ourselves on how do we see this as a measurement of success in our students. So this is something that you don't see a number given to, right? But success looked, we still felt successful, we still felt collaborative, we still felt we worked together and applied real academic knowledge as our base. And so how do we start to measure that?
So those are all really great questions. And Carrie and I have done some of this work before. This is a piece of what we research and what we do. And so none of the questions or the wonderings that you had tonight are new. It's very natural for us to think about some of these questions and these wonderings. And so some of the things that I do want to point out as we talk through, Dr. Gehring talked about this was one experience today, but we see a variety of experiences. We talked about whether or not group work, does that really mean everybody learned deeply or not, right? And so it may appear more project-based rather than a traditional setting. What I want us to think about too is as you were doing your activity, Carrie or I came around and we were either able to ask you questions, remind you of where you could get those supports, or kind of point you back to those reflection questions. And so while we didn't tell you as the facilitators or the teacher per se, we were able to guide you back to where you could find that information. And so one misconception that I just want to put out there is sometimes it's like, oh, we just leave our students to figure it out on their own and we don't support. That is not true. We provide support for them through a different mechanism of facilitating and supporting. I think the other piece is that it's all done solely in group work. And so how do I really know that as an individual student, my child is doing well? And that's also a misconception. There is a lot of group work where you learn to be collaborative and get your minds together. And I loved watching you build off of each other, right? And your thinking. But then there's also opportunities for a teacher or a facilitator to go in and individually assess each student to make sure that they're reading that measurement and that success that you have, right? And so those differences there, and we all come with different experiences around deeper learning, really kind of distinguish between what is starting into this learning and what is really what we call the high quality piece. And so when we're talking here about deeper learning in our system, we're talking about that high quality that starts with the academics, that provides the support and provides opportunities for group and individual. I'm going to pause there because it looks like you might want to say a little bit.
I had no intention of interrupting you at all.
No, you're good.
I just had a couple of, I guess, additional thoughts. Because of the group setting, if, for instance, I was not a good reader, but others in my group were, there's no deep learning for me around reading, really. I can just sort of coast. And so I think that's potentially problematic. And I think, I had a second point and I've forgotten it now. But that'll be good enough.
Well, you can always come back to that. You can always come back to that. So thinking about the reading, I think you see it in twofold. This was a science activity. So there's two ways. You're right. This is not where I might, if I'm not a quality reader, might not learn to read through this activity. But I get to participate and engage because maybe I have people who can read and can help me through that piece. But as a teacher, what I would be doing is working with you separately on our reading skills to make sure to bring you there. So that's where I love that it has this mesh of twofold where I still get to participate and be included and part of the group and be able to feel successful in the work, but then I also get the supports that I need to continue with my academic skills, which are equally important, right?
The other thought just came to me. It was depending on how the experience is framed or shaped or structured. In this one, for example, if I had enough time, I could experiment lots of different ways, and it doesn't necessarily require me to know something beforehand, and I don't know if that's necessarily deep learning. It's interesting, it's useful, it's not negative, but I'm just not sure if it checks the deep learning box, if it's framed in such a way that I can just sort of try stuff until something works, right?
So I love your questions. Like those questions get me so excited because there's a lot of ways that we can look at this, right? And we really want to build those experiences for our students where they're engaged and they can use these skills, but they truly are learning deeply. And so what are the intricacies that we need to do that with? And so we're going to dig into that a little bit more too as we continue on with our learning. So we're going to get back to that with some of the article reading that we're going to look at. But what we really want to talk about is you experienced it here. Carrie took you through this definition. We did the cool, warm, and flow activity. And so based on just your experience, what you maybe know prior to coming in with deeper learning, your experience here tonight, the definition, where do we see deeper learning in our system now? Where currently might we see some of this happening in our system?
In one of the campus visits I did, we saw them working with the kiddos doing the Rube Goldberg. Am I saying this correct? My son corrects me, and so now I'm all confused. But anyhow, we got to watch them work through that system. They're working together as a team, and they're problem solving of how these systems of pulleys and levers work. That was tremendous to kind of get to see that example.
I immediately thought of a lot of our CTE classes. And, first I thought robotics, but, of culinary, of our incubator classes, just so many of those CTE classes where they're taking those skills and really applying them and pushing those cognitive skills, and then they're pulling in passions with that and then taking it to a next level.
Today I visit an elementary, I won't say its name, but what I saw today, I feel like was the definition of a deeper learning entire environment with the entire school. So today, like, it was kind of awesome to be on that visit because I got to see firsthand at an elementary level what this could look like and the impact that it's had on our students, but most importantly, like the entire impact that it's had on the school.
I think our science kits do an excellent job on this because I just also had a campus visit not that long ago, but the science kit that was delivered and it's like all the pieces and they're like, okay, they're writing out a plan before they start, but they're allowed to see what they're doing. So, but they have to do that critical planning piece and then they were allowed to like engage and build and do the things. So I think our science kits are an excellent way to just strengthen that deeper learning.
So jumping over to we had some mention of high school and elementary, middle school level, that's Project Lead the Way, Gateway. All of those hands-on kind of experiences that our kids are able to do. But also, you know, just thinking in terms of our staff and how much they truly have a passion for what they're doing, everything from band to theater to choir to, I mean, all, you know, teachers willing to do a rocket club with my kid. I mean, things like that, that those educators are kind of going outside of the necessary thing that they have to do in the classroom to engage our kids into that deeper learning and what their passions are.
And when I saw this definition, I'll be honest, I was like, that's what SCSS is. So I feel like our SCSS department here, like this is what they do, essentially.
Yeah, I was going to build on Alexis's comment about science. I think the kits are great, but science, frankly, as a discipline is really good about using labs and applied work to I guess, cement the theoretical work you do in class sometimes. I think our extracurricular activities, lots of them do this. I mean, raising livestock is a great way to learn a lot of very practical things in a very real world way. DECA does a great job, and there are just so many programs to name, but too many programs to name. But I think there's lots of applications there, and probably ways that we could do a more coordinated, or I'll say a better job of coordinating learning with some of those activities and experiences.
I just wanted to share some, obviously I have a slight advantage over you because I get to see inside more, but I will share a video with you tomorrow in our Friday memo of Noah, who is a kindergarten student in our district, who is an author and loves to share his work, not only his writing, but his reading ability and his creativity. So I'll share that with you tomorrow. And I think you'll see that this is deeper learning on a very individual basis because he's not done it in a group. This is his passion, but you can see, I mean, he just comes alive. And to be able to witness the student presenting that himself is so hopefully you'll see, when you see that tomorrow. At the middle school level, we have a particular social studies team in the middle school who are doing this right now. I've watched them do it in their classrooms. It takes an incredible amount of pre-work to get to this point, but it's happening with such passion and creativity and forcing the kids to own the learning, and I've seen that happen. We have chemistry department across 3 different campuses that are actually collaborating in one PLC. So they're all working together as one PLC across, even though they don't ever see each other except virtually and collaborating. And the work that they're doing is definitely in this realm. And then things like AP Seminar and the IB, I don't know what it's called, the end writing project that they have to do, if it's capstone, or I'm not sure what it's called in IB, but that level of critical thinking, I think, gets to exactly this deeper learning definition for me. So those are just some examples that I've seen on the core side, because I think it's not just happening on the extracurricular and the CTE and those extra programs, although it dawns on me that it is somewhat easier to do it in those realms. It's more difficult on the core side to do it consistently.
I also wanted to mention, because later I'll go, I really wanted to say them why I did, and I think the Quest program does deeper learning. And I think I see our libraries when I think about kind of how our libraries are being reimagined and how the kiddos are coming in there. And we've got projects in makerspace, and I see deeper learning going on in there too.
Well, the number of on-campus news reports that are happening, and Corey can probably speak to this too. I mean, it's happening at elementary level all the way up. So that media piece, you know, they're really getting into the reporting and things like that. So that's been really cool too.
So I really love all the examples that you gave here. I think these are all great because it is happening in our system. I think I loved, I think some of the questions, some of us went straight to CTE and some Quest and some outside programs. I love the examples of the core as well. And then, Mr. Johnson, you're right. There are some disciplines that lend themselves a little bit more towards this learning, and it's easier to kind of transition to this learning than maybe for some others. And so how do we rethink and reimagine learning in those disciplines to help support some of this learning as well, right, to engage our students. And so all of those are really great examples. And I think that's the big question is, as we come together as a governance and administrative team, you all have already started laying that foundation, but how do we really help to bring deeper learning from the periphery more into the core so that it's not, if I'm in a program, I get to participate in this, but I just get to participate in this because it's part of the learning process, right? And so there were some great examples at some of our schools where we're doing that. And so how do we continue to bring that in as part of it? And so as you've started with your core beliefs and your vision and some of those things, you have already started laying that groundwork for us as a district. And so we're going to do another activity, and Carrie's going to take us through that. That's just a connections activity that helps us make sense of all the work that we've been doing.
So a very similar process to what we had before. Blue sheet helps you, resources behind it. But what we're going to ask you to do is to create a visual that represents the connection between deeper learning and our other district work. We have some examples of some things and provided some of those, but you may say, we have another idea, and that's absolutely okay to add to the list. You are not stuck to this list. It's just a list to get you started. And we will be in our two groups. I did not want to dismantle your bridge, I'm going to be really honest. But if we need to move them, we can move them because we are finished with the bridge activity. I just did not have it in my heart to dismantle your hard work. So if we need to move them, we can help you get those moved. So head on down to your spots and we'll get you started.
You may want to bring at least one or two of your members, bring your core beliefs sheet with you.
And you might can move it. I just did not know how stable it was.
It's not that stable.
Yeah, it's not stable at all.
And it's, so here is your.
Oh my gosh.
That's okay.
Whatever.
We're okay.
We're done.
We got it on. We got a picture.
Okay, good.
Okay, there is your paper, and I will get you some markers.
Oh, Lordy, big paper.
Oh. Here's the big paper.
Little set of markers here too. Now you know how every teacher feels. Taking it apart, it's just tragic.
Should die.
Down here.
Thank you. As a team, create a visual.
For science material, people do it all.
They were my friends this week.
They're amazing together. They're amazing teams.
Okay, read. As a team, create a visual. These represent the connection between deep learning and our other district. Use the chart paper to display your fact paper and then select someone who can present the idea. Under these fact paper, deeper learning competencies, the LISD learning model, the graduate profile, core beliefs, and student experience.
So have some of those for your reference.
So what are we like?
Yeah, so we're trying to connect this.
We're drawing something? A visual, it's a visual.
Like this?
Yeah, but but that's not deeper learning, right? I know. I mean, it is deeper learning, but that's not, how do you connect that, how do you show that with deeper learning? So we take. A big heart, just make a heart. Just make a heart, okay? Ooh, a tree with roots. Yeah. We don't have the right colors for trees. Go get your colors, go get your pens. I have green over there. Okay, let's see what else we have. So we need a visual that connects this to that. Just so, like, yeah, I mean, that's me. I'm like, let's get some scotch tape. Yeah.
Which, and I can bring you some tape if that's what you want to do. But you're going to be able to talk about that too. Someone has to explain your thought process. Okay.
I just need to be honest with y'all. We need a visual. I can do a spreadsheet like nobody's business. But I'm working on it. I'm an art person. Are you okay with the representation of a tree as deeper learning?
Sure.
Can you get the green pen for my desk? She's very particular.
See, it's hard for me.
I like the tree.
I like the tree because you're setting down something similar. Yeah.
And it was easy and,
I didn't think I was too visual.
you add, our things off to the side.
You got your leaves, your branches.
Which were you?
Oh my God.
Wait, do they have a green?
Those are
They
connections.
do. Can we swap?
Yeah, what will you want? They have a good.
I don't know, but I was thinking of,
Okay.
like,
Yeah, red's good for fruit.
Don't cheat.
No, can we,
Oh, that's a good one.
create a color for a second? I need a green.
I'll let you.
My tree is
Otherwise, Alexis is gonna use a pen.
I was thinking like, like where they
Exactly.
like a bin, like a bigger bin, like more than three.
Yeah.
But just all connected.
There we go.
Like at the center.
Now we got it.
Here, where's the green? I can do
Center.
the
The
big ones.
first might bring my graduate profile.
Okay,
but-
so somebody has to talk on this? For this, should we just like,
Trish,
Are
you wanna
these
talk on
the-
this, Trish? This was your idea.
so are these the, here's what I'm wondering, are these the leaves that create the deeper learning, which is the roots? Or are these the roots that create the deeper learning? What's the foundation?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And then here, it's like.
Oh,
Yes.
these are some good questions going on at this group.
Those are just some ideas.
going.
Because
I
thought
where you were going when you
right,
started
and
talking
show
about the
me, and
leaves
then, like, my brain wants to do it, but.
They're gonna be cherry tree, I think.
But I'm not trying to derail it.
No, I like it, let's keep going. But we water it through what?
Deeper learn? No.
What's the? We are doing the photosynthesis.
So I kinda like that.
I think we can keep. So we've got the learning profile.
Yeah, you do the fruit, and I'll do the little thing to it.
So that I don't mislead anybody.
They're little heart cherries. You can always go back to the food. We've got the learning profile, the graduate, and then we're gonna go into deeper
So we're
learning.
gonna say like, this is the quarterly piece, or no?
I've got it.
Okay, you've got it. I don't know.
Yeah,
got it?
so
You're in charge.
Thinking out loud.
let's just talk fruit
let me
trees.
draw my leaves.
Fruit trees generally, right?
Yes. I'm gonna throw
If
this question out
they're
there.
getting
Core beliefs
some
like that,
sun,
are you
some
talking about
water,
individual core
they'll
beliefs
grow.
on each one
They
of
have
those?
to have
Yeah.
Right? So then my question to you would be,
actually
does every core belief connect, or do
Right.
some of them?
Oh, I love that we were
Patient.
Thinking about that, so you don't necessarily
Soil
have to do it all or
conditions.
none.
Not as
So
simple. Is the combination of these
It
things,
connects to
the
those
learning
two, so
profile
then
and
it's like,
way?
Right.
I don't know.
And so,
That's, I just wanna know which one's what, right?
because I can see it both, like I almost feel like that this could be here, and this is our roots. No, wait, our core beliefs, wait, these are involved, right? Our core beliefs?
Our core beliefs right here.
Oh, wait, no, they are.
Core beliefs.
Oh,
Core
that's what I'm
beliefs,
talking about.
deeper learning, core beliefs, graduate profile.
I didn't have a red folder for this activity, sorry.
How do
Can we
these
use the
all
last
lead?
one? Can we
You
use
did
that one?
not, you did not.
Deeper learning.
Yeah, nobody
Yeah,
used
yeah.
it.
Math.
I'm,
Like I
I'm
immediately go to
thinking what's in
math
there. I'm
shapes.
gonna go try and see.
yeah.
That's just how my brain works. So I go to math shapes, like how many sided figure is that? How many, like, this is how.
Pursue the same things regardless, right?
I'm like,
I think if we look more holistically, like the graduate profile as it's been refined,
Right.
has a lot of these,
Branches.
you know, there's a strong alignment here to start.
Yeah, fruit, you've got to have truly deeper learning, you've got to have a variety of conditions.
what do you think goes where?
Which is fine, that you can pull that and say, like, this could be your answer, like you said, and then what areas have these other things. Like, what's down here? Yeah, would do that. I see Jim's getting ready to pull out some of the rice, he's thinking. It's also something going there.
If you've got all the roots, but you don't get enough sunlight that season,
But it really is just, your tree doesn't
or the bees don't come, you can't pollinate. It's a variety of different things that have to happen.
All right, so what are the variety of things? I just want to see where this fits with the roots. We need. You want deeper roots? Maybe the
So it's
roots are like
sun.
the kids? I don't know.
It's water. It's soil conditions.
Y'all are
Weather
going
can play in it.
We're over, this is what we
Right?
do.
I mean, it's a whole variety of things.
Totally get you. Fertilizer.
There's no one thing here.
Pest.
I'm tracking. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to decide, is this one,
Snow.
is this the production, or is this the soil, right? Or is this the weather, or is this?
It's all of those things. It's not one thing.
Yeah. I need a visual. I don't know how to make it a visual. Inputs and outputs.
Do you want sun? Do you want water? Do you want rain? Do you, I mean.
I know, you're talking about a system, right? What you're creating is a system, absolutely.
Right.
And all the conditions. Even the
There's
system.
a rain. Where's the sun at?
You got it.
Has to be the other side from the rain.
But the sun can't be.
Love it. That's right.
It's dark.
Blue sun.
Dark
Yeah.
sun.
We need a yellow
A
sun.
red sun.
I'll check to see if we have,
There's a spot
Look
on
it
the
up.
sun today.
I mean, if
You're Doc Brown, you should know these things.
I should know these things. I didn't bring my wig.
we'll draw deeper.
Yeah, I need
Actually,
some.
that won't work. Do you have a yellow marker, Alexis?
I need one,
Is it in the car?
probably.
I'm trying to think of how.
I'm gonna break out my scissors here in a minute.
Somebody's gotta have some.
Look,
I'm gonna make a 3D sun.
there we go, there we go.
I love it.
There we go, we're good.
Arts and crafts.
Uh-huh.
You didn't know my secret talent was arts and crafts, right?
Who can draw multiple bees?
Oh, we got it, look, okay, there you go. As close as I can get you to the color of the pen.
Who can draw a bumblebee?
Draw
Or a bee?
I'll try.
There we go.
You're gonna hold it up and it's gonna fall off.
I'll hold it.
I don't know. Depends how creative you are.
I will give you
Now you
5
want
minutes.
tape, don't you?
Uh-huh, you know I'm gonna look for it.
Okay, so somebody. Deeper learning there,
I will say that group up there has already starts having, they're still discussing, like, okay,
Walk me through it. So I'm up here and I'm like,
But of it.
is this a kid or is this my learning environment?
It's going to be aligned.
You need to know. Walk me through it. You gotta know, what is this? We're just kind of throwing it together.
Why don't you try?
All right.
you want me to try?
Yeah.
Okay,
What have you got?
yeah.
What are we drawing?
What's this?
I was trying to see, like, so here's so like, here's our core beliefs
so you
that
need
are
it
like,
all, right?
come into the graduate
What do we call
profile
this?
and our learning model, and there's like community.
The Leander, the graduate
And it crosses into
Learning
all
model.
three of those
So look,
sections.
in our middle, right?
Like,
perhaps
that's
maybe this is the trunk.
communication right there, and then over here.
I'm gonna go get my
core
scissors
beliefs
here.
I feel like this is all like,
And the graduate profile.
I can't decide.
Is that the bee?
Profile
Yes,
and
that
our
looks like a
core
fish.
beliefs.
It's a bee. I'm sorry.
Another one is compassionate community.
These are
So hold on.
And over here, we have
Just in case you needed those two things.
Thank you.
developing meaningful collaborative relationships. So then, if
So
I-
like, this,
core
okay,
beliefs,
so like,
here's
what
the
represents
collaborative
the leaf?
relationships. And if I go,
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I don't,
just wanna
you
know
don't need a one-to-one relationship on all of that stuff.
and I think about like that whole
Yeah,
collaboration,
so
deeper learning.
if some of the
Here's, like,
conditions are right,
Another, like,
we'll grow
here's
bees.
deeper learning.
We'll grow new
that
branches.
crosses
The
over
tree will get
core
bigger and
beliefs
stronger.
and
We'll grow roots.
profile.
Yes, the trees are student then. It's not the
This
school
is
system.
our
The trees are student.
collaborative.
I gotta have a student in the
Sure.
student lounge. Okay.
And then when you,
Then we're good.
and this,
You
these
know,
are the
so
environments
that's
too
what
that we run.
But I don't think that.
What's that?
This is the environment.
Right, like,
Which
we need-
inputs
No, this is,
students,
we haven't,
right?
like, you
Yes,
have to map
but-
out, here's the water. I think you should go with that.
So if you're the,
Also doing something similar, so.
I like
I kinda like that.
so,
Teachers
We're
are the
this?
bees.
Yes.
Propeller going.
Put some more bees.
Or something, maybe.
maybe.
That may be
Is
too,
it a tree or is it an orchard?
yeah.
You just keep throwing out more questions.
Fertilizer?
Yes.
Yeah, but then, okay, but your deeper learning, how does it connect is down here, right?
And then you like connect them all, right? All the way around.
Those are what are helping that student stand so strong. Collaboration, it's the content mastery. Those are the roots.
These could be the roots down here.
Deeper learning, our core values, core beliefs, whatever you want to call them, and our graduate profile. All of those things work in harmony to produce the student.
Beautiful.
This is
Don't-
I know, you're awesome.
We don't want them to feel that.
Oh, they're going to. We have a 3D model here.
Again.
But it's not a competition unless you're winning, right?
That's right. But that's how he gets engaged, remember?
There is an element to
I
that.
had competition on mine
Actually,
too.
a really interesting thing to me is when we got to why you were engaged, right? I'm like, oh, this is starting to look just a little bit
I
like
don't know
a
how it
strengths
shows
finder.
how they overlap, right?
100%.
It's all right there in the center.
And you can make that whatever size you want.
Yeah, I had leadership.
That's who you are, right? That's why you do what you do.
Core beliefs is in the middle.
I think we're
drive
cherries.
these
Like-
three
like
things
what about
which
here?
People learn in graduate
Well,
profile.
yeah, the cherries grow on the trunk.
It all stems from here. So
They're
those are-
apples.
And I started drawing them two ways,
They're
but they're really
apples.
not.
Or
They're
something.
one way. The core beliefs drive everything.
They're apples.
But then these things are all connected to each other.
They're big.
Big juicy.
There you go. They're all organic.
It's a lot like this, just showing the two-way, right? Like, but
This doesn't, well, all of these things have students in the center of them.
Okay.
right.
This is a different
Okay, so we
idea.
got green. So hold on. This is our deeper learning, yeah? Sorry, I'm like,
This is what core beliefs is student choice, and that's the first one.
this is our student, yeah.
And you've got,
Right.
You want to make some more beads?
you've got your people, you've got your learning model in here.
You got your learning model in here. Core beliefs.
I mean, you give me some glue sticks and we'll be like. You got it?
Profile.
I'm teasing, I'm teasing. All these are elements that go into that.
Yep, that feed into
Flower,
it. Yes.
this,
Gonna be the soil teacher that used to have
they might have us put it up there.
Oh, wow.
That's how, not essential.
Put it up there and see, that's where the mic.
Not me, I did.
And you have to dance with it?
Yes,
Your little,
yes.
that's you, Trish.
I did not contribute enough to this. This is not me.
I'll do it. You're not happy with our final?
No, I think it's great.
I think it's great.
I think it's wonderful.
I think it's beautiful.
Okay.
We've got the rain,
Who wouldn't be happy
we
with
got the
this?
sun. We've got a 3D model.
We do. We do.
You do. We are that amazing.
Wait a minute, we can use the clay to make a bumblebee.
Well, get on it, because I,
Get it? Because I will.
Wait, can we make an apple? Do they have, what color is their clay?
What I love about this conversation is that these are some of the same things you will hear as students are getting in the work too, of taking it on and on and on. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
so great.
Do little things on it. Give it little black.
Paint it black. Now we won't be able to return it.
They're not going to use this again.
Yeah, I don't know that the Science Materials Center will let me return that anyway, with COVID. So it is a one-time use
Put
product.
one over top of that one.
I'm so happy
We
with that.
have, we have newbies.
You got it?
I should be able to do a G now. Since I haven't had
Do we have to define all the pieces or?
No.
Okay, all right, good. I don't have to say pieces.
I think that just gets us in trouble.
Yeah.
Don't, yeah, just.
Yeah, no,
I don't
we're
like
just making
graduate
them
profile.
The more we just wow them with the visual, the
That's
better.
exactly what we're doing right now.
That is false
Wowing them with the
Are you
vision.
taping all the bees on?
That's it. No, that's enough.
We need to tape the bees on. We don't want to lift it up and throw the bees.
So what do the bees represent in your vision?
They're pollinating our,
They're part of the environment and system.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I like it. I like it.
it's our taxpayer.
Again, we don't want to go.
Don't say that.
Don't go too little, because what, we also think about the bees as teachers, right? Because they fly around, and they help spread
Must they be
information.
straight or, yeah, that's a flex capacitor that. No,
All of that.
these
But I like
these
what
guys
you're
are
saying. They
correct.
spread the knowledge, they fly around, they do that. That's great.
Tape that one too early.
Yeah, I did. I was just on the taping screen. You want to? That looks like a
Quality control.
It's a goldfish.
Antenna? They look great with antenna.
All right, Aaron, just as your approval. Art, are you happy?
Anything else?
I
Some
am-
clouds?
I am deeply
Who's
satisfied.
going to be your speaker. You're gonna, okay, so you're gonna talk about the connections and
Sure.
the visual of how.
In a.
Roundabout way.
Yeah.
Wow, them with the visual.
Yeah. I'm just saying, my
Give them-
campaign time to Apple.
Is
Yeah.
that-
I'm
Make
just
sure
saying,
they
my
see
keyboard,
all the
I had an Apple
components.
on. So did mine. What you get out of it is not so much about what I'm telling you.
That's right.
It's
That's
deeper
right.
learning. I need you to learn this and tell me what you see.
Can we use the orange or something to do
Where
like
do you want?
nutrients in the soil?
Oh, can you do nutrients?
Sure.
It doesn't look like we just gave it chicken pox or something.
Well, it's, you know, below the grass.
Yeah, we can't see it. I mean, we can have a stream. Well, maybe we can pink. Okay, where's the stream?
Deeper learning, Jim?
Stream's gonna be stream, right?
Here's pink if we need it. I don't know if we need it though.
There we go, yes. Yes, yes.
Like one that way.
Better with the waterfall.
It's a waterfall, yes.
Don't we have a waterfall too? Guys, this could be a good idea going
sun,
bad. You've gotta be
water.
careful. Yeah.
I think we're just missing the rainbow.
Don't you dare. There's no room. She's gonna get so excited, she's gonna look for all the colors. Okay, we're good. We're good. This is fine. Y'all just need to abandon
Beautiful.
it. This is great.
Go right in here or
Are you hating She's gonna go look for everything. I am. Keep it up. Give her any more elements. It looks great.
What about a rainbow? I'm just kidding.
It's got great elements. It's here.
Just suggest
Really?
water.
We need a rainbow.
All right,
We don't
do
have
a
a
5-minute warning. So 5 minutes to wrap up, and then we're gonna.
Yeah, sure.
Can't have a rainbow without purple.
Yeah, we could go for it.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I'm just saying.
That's quite
Are we
the
gonna put it up
sacrifice
over
you're
there?
making.
I'm like, yes. Where are we putting it up? Okay, do you want this? When it's your turn to present? No. You will put it up here. Okay,
we
we'll
gonna
go first.
Yeah, we're ready.
All right. We're going.
There goes the sun. The sun's falling apart.
Great. 1.21.
where we
More tape.
where put it on here?
Always works.
You should be able to see it up there.
For beliefs, like how about decorating that, right?
Secret calling in our class. Are you okay, Chris? Oh, we're so awesome.
Center?
Behind that.
Yep.
I love y'all. It's great. You're fabulous.
So we're gonna have you guys present first. So, great, sure, yes.
Yes, they're already going. That's what they wanted. They was like, we want
Well,
to.
I kind of figured maybe.
Yeah. Do you
There
need
may
your
have been a
handout?
sign.
Huh? You need your handout? Oh, I need my, the pen. And this one I've got, because these are our pieces in here. This is Travis.
All blue?
Thank you. Happy to serve. Can I go wash my hands? Can I be dismissed to wash my hands?
So we're done, right? We don't need to do this anymore. This is what we're gonna use. Yeah, I'm gonna run first.
Good, it's meant to be.
Who is going to present?
What's on the bottom?
Have y'all selected a presenter?
No.
Yeah, this is your
No,
drawing. Yes.
That's not allowed. That's against the rules.
No, it's not.
I'm going to let this group effectively communicate and collaborate.
I object, Your Honor.
What?
Okay, right.
I'm just kidding.
That's hilarious. No, that's Michi's
I
job.
forgot. Yeah, that's Richie's job. She's
Mickey's
the
like,
boss of
I'm
me.
the boss of all of y'all. How about that?
Forever,
Mitchie, Mitchie and Donna will be like, I'll tell you.
Isn't that true? Let's take my core beliefs back. Yes. Pick a school, any school.
There's no winner here, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
With Anna, there's always a winner.
Yes, we have 3D objects, okay? In a while.
Yeah, we're gonna have you go back to your spot.
Oh, back, okay. I'm like, where's my chair?
Uh-oh. Okay, we are going to get ready for our presentations of our visuals. Okay, so I believe, excuse me. So we're going to hear from our presentation for our visuals. I believe our first group, which is our group that has been over here, has selected Ms. Bodie to present for them. And so she will talk about their visual and the connections that they made from all the different documents.
So we talked about several different ways to do this, and where we ended up with is it's thought of as systems thinking. So you think of the system, what is creating the environment for the tree to grow? And the tree would be our student. And what you notice is at the bottom of the tree are the roots. And those roots, thank you. We've got 3D and presentation. At the bottom and the roots is our deeper learning. And so when we have environment in place, putting the right pieces together can really make those roots take root, take hold, and build our tree. The environments we put in place are the sun. We've got water. You'll notice we have the leaves. We put bumblebees on there, the bees that are pollinating and spreading information around. We've got the waterfall over to the side, and we've got flowers. And so when you think of all these different elements that go into a system that help your tree grow, we were talking about the different pieces. We've got the graduate profile. We've got our Leander way, our model. We've got our core beliefs, and these are all the different elements and pieces on there. And then you can also put in there our teachers, our administration, our board, and there you go. You got a pretty apple tree.
Thank you. Do we have any questions about kind of their connections or wonderings about their visual?
That they did great artwork. I did not do any of that artwork. That team over there, they're awesome.
I love how it brought together our draft vision statement, and when y'all talked about cultivating, it really brought that word to life in that concept of cultivate.
I just like that there's a nature aspect to it, that it's a natural thing that happens and occurs, and given the right environment, that it can grow and be great.
Just briefly, one of the other things we talked about was that you can have a fruit tree that doesn't bear fruit. It may have leaves, it may grow, it may get bigger year to year, but unless you have all of the right conditions, you may not have fruit. And so I think, like with our students, with what we're trying to get our system to produce, it really does require all of the right conditions to occur, sometimes in the right order, and all those kinds of things in order to have a fruit crop.
All right, I think we're going to put up the representation from this second group now.
I love the 3D bumblebees. It's fabulous.
So it looked much better when it was over there on the table and I was close to it. Uh-oh. So in a similar fashion to yours, ours has core beliefs right at the center, and it radiates out. So core beliefs drive deeper learning and graduate profile and the learning model. And so there's one-way arrows going out to those, but then deeper learning and graduate profile and learning model are all connected to each other in the ring. And so, and if you look at it just the right way, the flux capacitor can produce 1.21 gigawatts of power.
I like the star in there too, yeah.
All right, that was,
I'm gonna say something because I know. I was just thinking. So it doesn't have 3D effects, but what I do like is that it's a constant circle. You've got to have one piece to the next piece, and you can't have two pieces without, that's what I like about it. And it always centers back to the middle, so. But it's not as good as ours.
so what I would say if I was in the classroom running this is, while competitiveness is always great, it's about all of us learning, right, and making the connections together, right, and being able to explain those. What I really love, though, too.
I think she just reprimanded you. That's what I think.
I'm not sure.
But I did not,
There you go.
however.
I'm not sure she's right, but I'm listening.
So I really loved the way we were able to see, right, again, the different unique thoughts and the ways that you looked at this, as well as how you demonstrated it visually. I noticed in some groups, some people went straight to doing the drawing, others were kind of doing the thinking. I tend to be one that also tries to do some of the thinking and not the drawing. I don't feel like I'm as artistic. So it was great to see you use each other's strengths through some of these pieces as well, and really kind of talk through it with each other. And so that really takes us into talking about how, as leaders, do we support this particular work, right? Because one of our roles as leaders is to be key sense makers for everyone around the work that we're doing. And so that's part of the reason we did this activity, is because we have to be able to show the connections and understand them ourselves in order to be able to help others do that as well. And so really some of the questions are, how do we as a governance team and administrative team work collaboratively to support the work of deeper learning in our system? And then you also had an article called Deeper Leading that we sent to you in a board memo, and it's also in your green packet or your green folder. And I didn't know if there were items for there. We're going to open it up. If there were some items that kind of resonated with you from that article, or that you were thinking about in regards to the leading part for this work.
Oh, well, you added that second part, and I was going too quick, but I have to tell you what I loved as I'm reading this, is that we're preparing students for a world that has changed and continues to change radically. Talk to anybody about how office space is being used different now, and we're in a radically changing environment. So how are we preparing our kiddos? So I just love that.
Well, and that goes back to what we were talking about with the vision statement is the kiddos that are in pre-K now, the world is going to look completely different than it does right now by the time they graduate. And so I do love how, that continuous evolvement, that continuous improvement, it's going to have to be an ongoing thing. It's not going to be static. It's not going to be what we've always done. It has to change in order to keep up with where the world is going. But letting that deeper learning happen and making sure that our staff is prepared for it, making sure that our staff is trained for it, and that they understand what deeper learning really is.
I think that is a key piece from the article. We talk about, not a lot of teacher prep programs prepare you to teach in this way. And so it will take a lot of support from us as a system to help our teachers have an understanding of what that is and transition to a type of learning environment like this. And some are natural and some are already taking it on, and those are going to be the people who help us lead it. But it will take support systems, yes. Anything else from that article?
Well, I just think it matches so well with their visualization of this, how do you cultivate it, right? So leaders cultivate this same deeper learning for the adults in the system as we want then those adults to cultivate for the kids. And so
one of the pieces and why we did several of these activities with you today is because it also talks about we have to experience this as leaders to have an understanding of where our students are going to go and have an understanding as teachers of what these experiences look like. And so how do we create those for each other to connect together in and have a shared understanding of the work?
What struck me about this, that first activity that we did is the bridge building. That was a second grade activity, and yet it engaged us as adults fairly effectively.
Absolutely. And so there's a quote that we really rest on from this particular article, and it really talks about that we need to center schools around learning. And so that is part of what we really talk about is what does that mean to center schools around the learning and then provide the structures and systems to support that. And so this is one of the quotes that we're really resting on and working with leadership in our district, including our instructional leadership team. So our central office staff and our principals as well, of what does that mean and how are we defining learning and how do we center our schools around that?
Yeah, I had one other thought kind of connected to this. Often application, deeper learning is made easier when two different disciplines intersect, right? And so I think and particularly in a place where we're trying to do more with limited time and all those sorts of things, the more that we can get multi-discipline, multi-subject matter interactions occurring that are very targeted, very focused, very purposeful, I think the more that we do deep learning, and I mean, we can check lots of different boxes all in one activity. So the more that we can do that, I think the more we potentially scale the work we're doing in our system and can do more in the same amount of time. But it takes a lot of forethought and a lot of build time to be able to create those really valuable intersections.
One thing that popped in my head when you said that was the shift in the science, when you guys talked about the science kits and how they're journaling in their science notebooks on what they're observing, what they're seeing. They're literally writing science reports on their experiments. And so it's that writing and science kind of meshing together. Perfect example today in Gateway, they're going to grow bacteria over the spring break, and then they're going to come back and have to write about it. How did it change and how did it grow? They're in the biosciences section of that. But it's that writing mixed with that engineering piece. And so I think having that writing piece that's kind of crossed boundaries, like you were talking about, it's not just writing class, it's kind of all over the place, which is great.
So what you don't see is I'm like grinning about these, and I'm like want to cheer because I'm like, yes, you're so right. What you'll see in some of these schools, and some of them are larger comprehensive, some might be smaller schools that really take on deeper learning, you see just that. You see integrated courses. You're not going to a social studies or an English, you're going to a humanities course and where we're including this. And so you're right on the money here about this is really what we want to get to because it is about integrating the disciplines in order to be able to take people to deeper learning. And so that's what we mean about centering our schools around learning. Are we staying in the traditional piece, or are we really thinking about what makes deeper learning and how do we restructure some things to support it? So absolutely right on the nose with that. So we really appreciate that one. So this is, right, this was the first of just kind of our first dig into what is deeper learning and how do we learn together as a community. We've had several, questions and some discussions. We're open for more if you have any, but this is kind of that first step and that taste. And as you get more questions and we want to do more activities, we are more than welcome and happy to come back and to share those with you and to answer any additional questions that you might have.
One thing I'm not going to say the campus, but today I got to see this deeper learning. Like I read this quote and I'm thinking of exactly what I saw today, and I can name the school afterwards, but I would love for my fellow board members to see what I saw today, because when we go back to that individual education plan, what I saw today was a campus truly engaging in deeper learning and ensuring that every child on that campus was taken care of, but most importantly, getting into the potential that they could be. So I'll message you.
Well, we have so many of our campuses reaching out, and I think it's tremendous the things we're seeing happen all across the district, right? I do have a question. Can you help me? And I'm not trying to be difficult, but help me understand what this does, though. Like, okay, we did a great project. We, drew pictures, made a bridge. What's the next step? Where do we see deeper learning coming back? Is it going to come back in our mission statement this evening? Are you planning for us to build on that? Or are you thinking you need to come and talk to us again? Just tell me where this plugs into the plan.
So it can most certainly come into your mission statement if that is where it leads and guides you to that. It is part of the core beliefs. There is there are pieces of that in there. So it really is having that conversation. We can come back if there are additional learnings, but also what we're doing is this is a journey that we're taking, making these connections with our instructional leadership team. And so at this last meeting, we talked about the refined graduate profile, and we really said, what does this look like in action? What would students be doing in the classroom? And then we're going to move on to the next meeting to say, if this is what students should be doing in the classroom, then what does teaching need to look like, and what does leadership need to look like to support that? Carrie and I also help run what we call our Deeper Learning Institutes. Currently, we are running those for our teaching and learning staff at our district offices, because we need them to have a good understanding together about what does this mean so that we can support campuses appropriately. It is much easier to get this moving if, one, you have the leadership on the campus that has a good understanding and can set the culture and the expectations to roll this out, and then if you have the district supports there. And so we have, our science team has been through this, our instruction and professional learning team. When we return from spring break, we will have humanities, and then we will have our special programs and our pathways and innovation teams go through it in April.
And math, we don't want to leave out math. Math has gone through it.
Yes. So those are all the pieces, and then we're working on what does a multi-year rollout look like, so we support people appropriately, meet them where they are, and then be able to bring them to these ideas of deeper learning.
I would love for a follow-up later after you do these. I don't know if you're doing like any type of, measurements ahead of, before and after, or surveys, or whatever you're measuring, but something that just kind of comes back and goes, here's what we're seeing now as a result of this, just so we kind of stay in the loop. Thank you all very much.
Yes, absolutely. And those, so much like you presented today, those Deeper Learning Institutes have presentations as well, so we can work with Michi and Donna. If any of you are ever interested in coming and seeing some of our groups present some of their final products, we can get those dates to you, and we can have you all sign up if that's something you're interested in.
Thank you. Board members, any other questions? All right, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break. Is that okay? And then we'll get set up for our next presenter for this evening and the second half of our discussion this evening, the discussion of mission of Leander ISD. All right, it is 8:20 and we are back into open session. And remember, this is our special board meeting. It's not like our regular board meeting. And we are doing the other half of our agenda this evening, which is the district mission statement. Sarah, would our presenters love to introduce themselves and tell us what we're going to do next?
All right, good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees, Dr. Gearing. So Sarah Grissom and
Susan Cole.
Yes, and here.
I was looking to see if my microphone was on.
And we are excited to be here tonight as we begin some conversations around the district mission and mission statement. And I know this looks a little different, and I'll give more explanation here, but we have invited our cabinet members up to be a part of this conversation. So, on Tuesday, we had some great dialogue around the vision and where in the future do we want to be. And we created a storyboard of some of those discussions, and to capture that, a storyboard is used to capture all of those conversations so you can see the progression over time. So you can see that there. And, I was intentionally listening in the deeper learning conversation to be able to make connections back to this work. And you all naturally did it in those conversations. You were making connections back to core beliefs, back to the vision work in deeper learning and how that could possibly inform the mission. So y'all are the advanced group, right? So I did go ahead and pull back up the roadmap to the 5-year strategic plan. And like I said on Tuesday, we are very much in that we're doing donuts on the road, right? We have gone through the experience of creating the core beliefs, and that's the foundation. And right now we're living in that vision, mission, refining the graduate profile, but also that shared learning. And that is completely intentional. While it is messy, it is very intentional, right? Because it is used to help each of those pieces inform the others, right? So the vision, we're not completed yet, right? Y'all did incredible work, but we know there's still work to be done. It's not a final statement. And that's okay, because that work is going to help inform this mission conversation tonight, and then vice versa. Right? The mission conversation may cause some different thinking around the vision as well. And the same goes with the graduate profile. And you've also expanded your understanding around deeper learning, so that may infuse into this conversation. I will say, we're only going to spend about an hour on this tonight. This is not intended to get to a final mission statement tonight, but really just start some of the conversations. So let's talk about, why do we have cabinet members up here? Like we talked about, the vision is about where do we want to go into the future? Where do we see ourselves, right? The mission is, how are we going to get there, right? And when you think about the how, that has to be the work of the collective organization, right? So it is of the governance team, but also the administration and the rest of the organization. So it's a natural time for us to come together and talk about, how are we going to get there, right? We have an idea of where we want to head, but how are we going to do that together? Because we know we have to do this in partnership. So that's what we're going to spend some time doing. And we're going to start off really by telling stories. Stories are powerful, right? Because they paint a picture, they evoke emotions, and they help to bind people together. So that's what we're going to spend our time tonight in, engaging in a protocol, because we like protocols, and really listening to each other in our stories. So you each have, there's a stack of note cards, and we're going to ask you to grab a note card. And we're going to give you some time to think about a story, an experience of where we, and we as in the collective LISD, what does it look like when we're doing our best work? Okay, so I want you to think about a story that exemplifies when we are doing our best work. And I'm going to push you. Do we have all the materials distributed? Are we good? Okay. I'm going to push you to really get granular, right? It's easy to think of, big, broad experiences. I want to push you to think about a specific student, a specific staff member, a specific experience that you're going to write about. And as we were preparing for this, I thought about an experience. So back when I was a principal, and we had a student who started with us at elementary. So this was, she was coming into our ELE program. It was a student who was wheelchair bound. And what happened was the staff partnered with parents to really figure out what is the best way to support this particular student so that she was fully included. And then what happened is that set the stage for that inclusion, full inclusion, wheelchair bound, to be included in middle school and to be fully included in high school. But that was a partnership that happened at a very young age for her. So that's one particular story that comes to mind when I think about when are we doing our best work. We know there are lots of examples, even in latest COVID times, right? So I want you to just take some time, think about a story. We're going to ask you to write it down. You don't have to get all the specific details, but write your story down. I'll give you a few minutes.
Are we going to share the story widely or just with our group?
Okay, so that's a great question. You are going to share with your group. There is going to be some time where you are going to share out loud, and we will definitely, ask you to help protect confidentiality for people. Yes. And if you can't think of a story, make one up. What would it look like if we were doing our best work?
Do you know what that final
I know what you took, that's the research paper, yeah, what is it?
that final big one? I don't know what it's called. I'm going to call it their thesis or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
as you are writing. We just wanted to let you know we do have microphones. We do have microphones on, just because we do need to be able to pick up conversations for the recording.
So it looks like some of you have already started forming into your groups naturally. Don't want to rush, but once you have your story written, if you want to go ahead and go around and share and have each of you share your story in your group. So yes, Chris, if you could rally up with these, thank you.
So we share?
Yes. Go around and share.
I was gonna say, This was a group of students who were seniors and they were presenting. This particular group was one that had struggled. We literally dragged them kicking and screaming from the grade through all of that academic coursework and but they had for a project was presented and just they had the audience that had invited outsiders to come on and invited teachers that invited
Anyway, long story short.
skill demonstration of what they can do.
That's fine.
Speaking capability confidence that they had physics, chemistry, content area that they struggled with in classrooms, which is clearly evident in this presentation. Ask yourself the question, why can't we do everything they
Everyone, listen, working. I don't know what that was for, but we're on that one too.
I didn't know if I should make it personal or not, so I'm just gonna do the, I don't know, because like teachers that we think about a process like this, and you know, after suddenly everybody else is chatting for 4 or 5 days, the cultural fine, right? And the process was actually the most smoothest process had been, it actually worked. So then evaluation time was 3 weeks. We got an E, and we provided them with a 2.5 to reflect nonverbal their learning. You can only, jab only, you can only see tweens, and then we had them with tweens on. That's it, like he couldn't communicate to you, but he could communicate with tween. And so, no, you should hear some of the songs we have to listen to. So, it's like, oh my gosh, we wrapped up, but when we came into, somebody's gonna go into the head of the strategies and why is this the right place in our experience? And so we'll want to hear from the teacher. I came in ready to like fight and just talking about it because everyone was so accommodating and willing to support our organization. So we were just talking to this family and quick, it's personal, right? And so you were able to get to, that's why I had to give my trust to the system and put it into practice that hopefully was going to be a consideration to make. And like,
Like now, we went through the whole process and we had sped support, and now we're about to exit out of sped support because he was able to get the accommodations and the resources he needed. So like that's like a perfect example of a child that needs early intervention, early child finding, and I think figuring out what was right, and not trying to be prepared of the diagnosis. They're just making it work. The same thing with Stephen. We didn't have a system.
In ways that she felt that
Stephen would
was really appreciated and valued.
we have child failing in 60 and I feel
Essentially said, I had no idea
given us the support,
that
what makes
having this
confidence in
experience
that, given that confidence to a child is that getting
a wonderful expression of
sorry, I'm passionate about this.
for this young woman.
Does he still sing Queen? Oh my gosh. My favorite song right now is what's the song about dogs? No, Queen is a big, I mean, it just, it's so funny because it's, we lived in Chicago and he would, couldn't communicate and start like singing, positives and the negatives. And it was my best friend, and so that's how he would communicate with mom. Like, instead of saying, I love you, you're my best friend. And there's other songs that I've listened to. That's the most favorite song for 6 months straight, and we were actually at the Safeway in Chicago, and he's just, and I'm like, but I'll remember this, like, that register lady was like, oh, that's amazing, it was like, oh, not only does he know this, but he's going through the song, he's going through the machine, and we have like playing all the songs, and so that's how he knows. Shocker.
So we had 3 years ago when we launched Fort Worth, our big thing was we wanted to make the community brand. Do this, make that
Is there a way for us to work ahead?
Yes, I do know that. Unfortunately, no, there's not. Come up with another story, right?
What happens next?
We, next, so we're gonna ask you, well, we're gonna take you through a protocol, and then we're gonna ask you to share out a little bit.
Okay.
And then we're gonna wrap it up.
Okay.
Camera operator, he actually got into directing. Mostly just being able to lead verbally. We were able to bring him back. He decided he wanted to make a video production for
I invented one. Okay. Because I just obsessed with It's about an LASD student that graduates from our Health Professions Academy with a health assistant certification and enough dual credits to be considered a second-year college student. This student continues to attend ACC for 2 more years while working as a medical assistant to pay his way.
When I worked there, he was raising
Another person where parents were able to afford college. And he also said he wanted to get he's working at St. David's. Very happy with that, which is perfect for his graduation.
No, I didn't, well, because I ended up having.
And then he ended up being able to transfer to Texas.
Year where they were all
After getting his BSc bachelor and continuing on.
No, my big one's really nice. I go,
How would you be thinking about the last several days?
Are y'all done?
I didn't put it all together that far. I added some details, but I just picked groups, that's all our academies work.
And he was a, this is a math double major. He was an intern this year, as a freshman, and now he's decided to zero to mathematics instead. And then he's in a minor in Japanese for fun. So my husband's 6 foot 6, well, and when he worked for Sony, he had really
That's not your fault.
No, but I don't like other people to come join.
You know, it's just, it's what it is.
I'm the shortest in my house.
Okay, I believe everyone has had a chance to share. So if y'all could go ahead and finish your conversation. So we are going to start the protocol process now. So what you're going to do is you're going to engage with what you wrote on your note card, and I'm going to give you directions step by step, and then ask Sarah to model for us as well. So the first thing you're going to do is in your story that you wrote, we're going to ask you to circle anything regarding a specific person or place. You may have more than one. So circle a person or place. So Sarah, in your story, what did you circle?
So I circled student, parents, and teachers.
Okay, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to draw a square around parts of your story that show action, So Sarah, what did you put a square around?
I squared partnered.
And then the last and final thing we're going to ask you to do for this particular part is to underline anything in your story that changes for the better or the results of the action or makes a difference. So that the results, the impacts, you underline anything regarding that. So Sarah, what did you underline?
Fully included.
So this protocol helps see the most important parts of your story. And we want to capture some of these up on our chart. And so Sarah is going to be our scribe. We will not do all 20. We will ask at the end, though, if you're comfortable with us taking your card, because then we're going to add to this. But what we thought we would do is just start with having maybe one person from each group start, and then we may go around another time. We'll see where we get. And so any group want to start first? And we will say, because of confidentiality, please refrain from saying specific names, and also really try to synthesize and, you know, try to get a summary so it's not maybe, you know, 2 sentences long what you underline. Try to synthesize that. So who would like to start? Okay, and Gloria, I can bring the microphone, or you're good? Okay.
It's off again. Sorry, I think did that. Okay. So we're going to start with the circles?
Yes.
Student, teacher, teachers, and librarians. And next, those actions were collaborates, completes, complete, earn, and then the outcome, thrive, thrive, challenge, enjoys, and sort of, I guess this works, confidence, confident.
Thank you. Okay, so if I have some of the same ones, is she going to put check marks? Or are you going to rewrite them in your lovely handwriting? Because it is like perfect.
I am happy to just check mark.
Okay, so I have student, teachers, and then in that middle one, I have watch out for. And then developed. And then in that last one is safety and competence.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I ask that we share the actual story?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm like, oh, okay.
I'm trying to fill in the blanks. So, can we hear the actual story? If y'all feel comfortable?
I'll share if that's okay. Is that okay? So I actually copied Mrs. Bodie and Dr. Gearing on an email that I just recently sent about my own child at Henry Middle School. He's had a lot of anxiety about going back in person. My mom lives 3 doors down from us. She's 72 and has multiple sclerosis, and so he was really, really worried about bringing COVID home for her. She's now totally vaccinated, so he feels much better about being in the building. He's had some rough days where, you know, he's just not quite feeling it, you know, feeling right. And I just noticed that his teachers have all been really in tune to how he's feeling. They've noticed. They've given him a moment. They've said, hey, take a break. They've said, hey, I see that you might need XYZ. And they're just the amount of support that he's gotten from HMS in the last 3 years. I mean, he's an 8th grader now, but you know, we've gone through some rough times, and so I mean, he's had a safety plan in place and things like that. And so, just the fact that they've got so much on their plates, and they've taken the time to really get to know him, to be in tune to him, to know what he needs. to be able to learn and continue to feel safe in his environment is everything. So that's my story.
Thank you. And so really, that safe in environment, safety was about in that environment, in that school. Awesome. Gloria, did you want to share?
This is just a story about high school senior in the IB program and had that final writing project. I can't remember what it's called, like a thesis or something. And the student, it was near the deadline, and the student had done nothing on it and was ready to just drop the IB component altogether and just graduate. And went and talked to the teacher about changing that and just dropping the IB component. And the teacher had talked to some of his other teacher and the librarian and said, it's like they were able to talk to him and find out like the topic was wrong. And that's why there was no movement on it. And knowing the student and knowing his passions and the things that interest suggested another topic. And he said, that would never work. Like, I'm not a literature person, and I'm not a writer. And all of these teachers said, yes, you are. You do. You read. Maybe you don't think you're a writer, but we think you could do this. So knowing like their students and not giving up on their students and just believing in students, even when students don't believe in themselves, I think is just so critical. And so the student, to the point where the librarian said, how about doing it on this book? Because I know you love that book. I've seen you read that book, like the same book, like 10 times. And helping guide that process, but still challenging a student. And then that student, at the end, coming out successful and really thriving, and then feeling a sense of confidence about completing something that they didn't think they could do.
Thank you. So yeah, why don't you share your story and then we'll put the words.
Okay, so I am going to talk about what I find success or whatever. So y'all know that I have my fourth child, Jack. I can say his name because I'm his mom. Jack was born nonverbal and diagnosed with autism very early. And I remember sitting in our pediatrician office and seeing the child find for Leander ISD. And, I'd already had a child in special education, but that trust factor was gone for me. I didn't trust. So I called Child Find, and it was probably the most easiest, I don't want to say easiest, but very smooth process that I have ever been in. Y'all know that I've been through lots of these processes. And what was awesome is they could sense my hostility, but also I just didn't trust anyone. And so what was awesome is that we went in, did the evaluation within the appropriate time that by law we're supposed to. Jack qualified for ELE and at 3 years. And so we had a child enter ELE, nonverbal, no space, has space issues. And here I was handing my child over, not sure what to do. And because of the support we had, and most importantly, we had a staff who was willing to collaborate with not only their parents, but with his therapist. So like I told them, Jack, the only words he would sing was Queen. So you can ask him any Queen song and he'll sing it for you, even the inappropriate ones. But that's how he sung to us. So when he would want to tell me, Mommy, I love you, he would sing the Queen song, you're my best friend. So at 4.5 years, after lots of interventions in ELE and with an amazing staff support with speech therapists, SESS, OT, at 4.5, Jack finally said, I love you. And so for us, is she okay? That was huge. So I got to see a success, that's a success story, because now this child who got the early intervention and the early supports is now in first grade, and he's going to exit out of special education here, hopefully within the year. So that for me is like the definition of success, at least in my opinion. So I just wrote it barely. I didn't write it all, so good luck. That was all my story.
Okay, so tell me.
So it's student, teacher, would child find even, or admin? Yeah. Because we have principals in there too. And OTs. I don't know if you can add all the special supports, just put student supports. See, state student. What is the next one?
What parts show action?
So referral, right? Making that referral? Supports? Collaboration? Willing to listen? Putting biases behind, knowing who they were dealing with? Oh, you know, it's pretty beautiful.
And then,
Putting biases, I don't know if that's even, just leave that. Included. Succeed, support. Okay. Oh, you don't ask me. It's good. I mean, yeah.
thank you.
My story is about a student that entered our system. Yes, he brought the microphone to me. That entered our system into ELE. And she was a student with autism, so it was her first opportunity to come into the school setting, and transitioned well, did a great job, and then she ended up getting leukemia. And so supporting her with autism, as well as supporting her medical needs, was a big balance. And a big task for the staff, and very scary for the parents. And so it was our job to partner with the family. And so we worked with doctors and therapists and the teachers and counselors. And I mean, it was the whole group of folks that were ready to jump in and help support this family through this time. But we worked on transitions from hospital back to school, having to stay at home. It was important that the student did not lose relationships and lose out on friends and school experiences as a kindergartner at the time. And so we worked, and this student, one of the recommendations from one of the doctors was to have a stuffed animal in the classroom. And so that stuffed animal would participate with the class, and that was the communication method from home to school. It was very successful. The student had great friends, and it was, you know, when she was able to come into the classroom in kindergarten, it was like she was right there the whole time. And so it was a great experience. And that student is now in high school, very successful. So it's a great story. Mm-hmm.
All right, so what'd you circle?
So I circled doctors, therapists, student, teachers, parents, and then in the next would be include, and partner, transition, and in the next, independence. There's lots of training involved for the students and the staff, so training. And positive relationships.
Thank you. Would love to hear a few more stories. Like I said, we will not do all 20, but we'd love to hear a few more. Anyone want to volunteer or be voluntold by their group members? I hear some encouragement, and, oh, going up, going up. Okay.
Some of y'all have heard this story, but it's going to be about a facility, believe it or not. So, part of the 2017 bond actually had a project for Leander Middle School, the classroom addition, as well as the HVAC renovation project. And so we did that project in phases, of course. The first year when it opened, we did the first phase, and then the 8th graders came back into the building. That first day, Mark Kohler was principal, and he had a very formal, like a march for the kids to see the new spaces. And my daughter happened to be a teacher, or is a teacher at LMS for 8th grade at the time. And so one of her students came up to her and said, "Ms. Dissler, this is just too nice. It shouldn't be for us." And so, I mean, it just, broke her heart, and, told her it really did. You deserve every bit of it. But for us, in facilities, part of the design is, we really want an enhanced learning environment. It does so much for the kids. And so it's very, satisfaction, a lot of satisfaction when you hear the stories of how our facilities impact kids' lives in the environment for which they learn. And so that was my little story. So the words on the first one, of course, teacher, student, of course, the campus. But then the center one, I'm not sure if it's correct, add. So I'm not sure. We added spaces. And so, of course, enhanced. And then the last category was, what was that again?
It was about what were the impacts?
Enhanced learning environment. I guess that could be dual.
I'm wondering if the action would be in the middle, the principal or the school, showcasing to the kids, like you mentioned, a parade.
Yeah. Showcase.
In the middle, like. That's great, Jimmy. Thank you. Couple more. Looks like Jody's being nominated.
Yes. Okay. It's really hard not to use names, but this is a student that we've watched be a part of a program for 4 years now. He's a senior at one of our high school campuses, has a huge interest in athletics, is not always able to participate in the traditional way, but has been embraced by the team and the coaches, the whole staff, and the community. And when this kiddo graduates this year, there's going to be a huge hole left where he has made an impact, not just on the sports teams that he's around, but the school, the community. I was at a banquet a couple of weeks ago. He runs the show. He knows all about his coaches. He tells on his coaches all the time. He holds the players accountable. And the platform he's been given has reached hundreds, if not thousands, of people through some corporate trainings even that he's been a part of. And so just to see from where he came into the program 4 years ago and what he's leaving on that program and campus, and the impact he's had on the players around him and the younger kids. So I think that's maybe the best part of seeing what's going to come after he graduates is these freshman kids and these sophomore kids have seen how the older kids have embraced him and hopefully carry on what he's going to leave behind there. So my words were teammates, coaches. I think we have parents up there. Got in the middle, training. And embraced. And impact.
We're almost out of room on the chart, Sarah, but if there's anyone else that would like to share their story, there's still a little bit of room.
I think I'm running out of vocabulary or adjectives because my story will be short. But I remember when I was touring one of these campuses and they were doing the Leader in Me showcase. Those are always so phenomenal, right? Because you see kiddos finding their strengths and really showing off. Well, and not showing off in a bad way, like just being their awesome selves. And so I went up to the classroom and there was this greeter at the door, the student, and he introduced himself to me. And I thought, that's so cool. And this was pre-COVID, so he shook my hand. And then I went and talked to the teacher and I found out actually there was a whole story behind this student where he wasn't particularly comfortable with his speech. And so he had withdrawn. But the Leader in Me program and the way the teacher had come around and supported and worked, he was being encouraged to do more things in the classroom. And so he was being like encouraged to go out further. And so he was starting to get confidence more and more. So a student who you wouldn't have even imagined would have been like a communicator or presenter was all of a sudden at the door greeting me and showing me around like the neighborhood and all the great things that they're doing. And so my words are student, teacher, and then encouraged. And support. I don't know, is that already on there? And then confident.
So when we started this, Sarah charged each of us to write down specifically thinking about Leander ISD, what does it look like when we're doing our best work? And so each of you wrote a story connecting things that you have seen, things that you've heard, things that maybe you've experienced and lived. You found a story, and that's just one. There are so many stories in LISD. And each of you have your own story and how you make an impact. So with that, Sarah? Test, test, test. I'm not sure if it's working.
Sorry, I'm coming back over there. Does this work? Test, is this on? Okay, so we are going to collect your cards from you. There is a method to this madness. And we are going to continue to add your stories to this. And this will, believe it or not, actually lead us to, as we think about our mission statement and the mission of why are we here and what are we going to do to get to this vision. And again, as y'all were sharing your stories, and I'm writing all of these words, I keep going back over here to what y'all talked about, where you say, LISD will empower all students and life changers to achieve their maximum potential. And I can see connections of stories that do that. LISD empowers and inspires students and life changers to learn deeply in an equitable, inclusive, and innovative environment. And I see stories that lead us to this vision. One LISD will empower our LISD life changers to cultivate the most sought-after graduates in the state of Texas. And I see stories that lead us to this. So we're going to continue to add your stories to this, because as we are beginning to take shape, you see our cause start to emerge. You see our actions start to stand out. And you see the impact. And we're going to use this to continue the conversations on mission at another time. Thank you all for your participation. Please make sure we have your cards so that we can add them to the storyboard. I absolutely want everyone's cards.
So
you don't have to put your name on it.
Are we about wrapping up for the evening, or is there we're getting ready to adjourn as soon as you turn in your card?
I told you.
You did tell me. I told her, I said, you don't understand, we're the advanced team. We might want to write the mission statement out tonight, but I guess she didn't want us to go too fast. Board members, thank you so much. We've been meeting frequently, and this was our second meeting this week. So I appreciate your time and your dedication. Thank you, Cabinet, for sharing your stories and your time with us up here, too. We appreciate you. And if there's no objections, we're going to go ahead and adjourn. We'll see you March 25th for our regular scheduled board meeting.